Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Love and Life, the channel for sharing knowledge on holistic self-development through great books. On October 6th, the 82-year-old French author Annie Ernaux was awarded the 2022 Nobel Prize in Literature, with the citation praising her for the courage and clinical acuity with which she uncovers the roots, estrangements, and collective restraints of personal memory. Her masterpiece, The Years, has also been widely received by the public and has had a profound impact on millions of readers. This is an extremely unique autobiography. Annie Ernaux tells her life story, but not with the pronoun I, using we or she instead. She borrows from collective memory and personal memory, combining them with a sociological perspective to tell, in the most authentic and vivid way, the growing up process of a woman from childhood to old age, spanning 65 years in the unceasing flow of life. The years are like an album of old photographs. Every time we look at them, we can clearly see the mistakes, disappointments, and suffering at different stages of life. It is at these moments that every decision can change the destiny of a lifetime. Some people choose correctly, some keep making mistakes, some move forward, some remain stuck in the past. Reading this book, you will follow the author on a life journey that has both sharp thorns and fragrant flowers, helping you understand, ultimately, how you should live and what decisions you should make at each stage of life. And now, please listen to a sharing from Love and Life titled 3 Decisions That Change a Lifetime through the autobiography The Years by author Annie Ernaux. In youth, there are always words that help you swim against the current. Annie was born in a small town in Normandy, France. Her life was poor from the start. The place she lived was full of low, dilapidated houses with decaying furniture. Because of the harsh living environment, children there constantly died of starvation and infectious diseases every year. Her father had worked on a farm, then as a factory worker. Her mother left school early, got married, and sold trinkets. But financial constraints and physical hardship can erode the love and warmth parents have for their children. In Annie's memory, her father was an alcoholic, very rough in his speech and behavior. Her mother was extremely strict. People living at the bottom of society cannot change their current situation on their own, so they place all their hopes for a better future onto their children. In the years she was growing up, society was very conservative. For a girl, no matter how beautiful, educated, or intelligent, nothing was as important as preserving her dignity and virginity. Under that value system, the mother became the strictest supervisor for her child until marriage. As a girl, you were not allowed to watch movies or read anything related to love. You were not allowed to wear short skirts or colorful clothes. As a teenager, Annie never went out alone, nor did she ever attend a party or meet outsiders. The budding teenager Annie became more and more curious about the feeling of being in love. She secretly watched movies and romance novels, then tried dating a boy. But Annie worried that her excuses for going out would be exposed sooner or later, so she quickly ended the relationship. It wasn't until she turned 18 that Annie had the opportunity to work part-time at a summer camp. She felt she was finally free. At this time, she was at a mission school. Annie was tall, dressed simply, and on the outside, she was a well-behaved, diligent, and studious girl. But in reality, her heart was full of desires. She often envied her classmates who came from rich families, wishing she could dress fashionably like them to receive attention and affection. Then one day, at the first dance party of her life, Annie intentionally took off her thick glasses and let her hair down to look prettier. A man named H, the head counselor, the first man to ask Annie to dance, took advantage of the few seconds the lights in the room went out to steal a kiss. In truth, Annie had already noticed this tall, blonde, charming man. She never expected H to make a move on her. This was a completely new experience for Annie. She thought she was about to have a wonderful romance. However, H was actually an experienced player, and he only intended to play with her. On the second day, Annie discovered H with another beautiful girl, utterly desperate. Annie ran from the dance hall. Unfortunately, a few kids from the camp witnessed the scene and immediately surrounded her, mocking her humiliating failure. They dumped a whole bucket of water on Annie. The sounds of shouting and jeering grew louder. Through her soaking wet hair, she saw H, immediately dashed from the crowd, shouted his name, calling for help, and threw herself into his arms. But H just smirked, said nothing, turned, and walked back to his room. Annie was deeply hurt and disillusioned with love. From then on, she lost herself and began to join in wild fun, dancing, playing, flirting, and living rebelliously. She also began to lose interest in her studies, and her part-time work was neglected. Because of this, the summer camp also rejected her application for work. But more painful than anything, her recklessness made the young girl taste the bitter fruit early on. She discovered she was pregnant unexpectedly. What would her life be like now? How could she face her parents and the conservative society of that time? Just imagining it was suffocating and heartbreaking. Feelings of fear, loneliness, and being adrift in the flow of life besieged this 18-year-old girl. She didn't know what to do. But in the midst of that desperation, a light flickered at the end of the tunnel. One day, Annie read a book called The Second Sex. From this book, Annie had an awakening. She realized her relationship with H was not equal at all. There was no love. He only saw her as a tool to kill his loneliness, a victim to be discarded at will. Annie wanted to become an independent and self-reliant person. She had to escape this ignorant life. She also realized that only through diligent study was she on the only path to save herself. Therefore, Annie gathered all her courage to secretly have an abortion, brought back her simple clothes, and immersed herself in a sea of books. Finally, thanks to her hard work, she passed her university entrance exams. After entering university, she felt happier than ever. She read countless books, studied literature, practiced writing, paid attention to social issues, participated in various activities, and won the highest scholarship. After graduating, Annie became a teacher. She now had a decent job, could be independent in a big city, and had completely escaped the nightmare of the slum. Thanks to her efforts in studying, she had stepped out of a life at the bottom of society on her own. Thanks to reading so many books, she had opened up a new world for herself and found her own path. When you are young, the choice to go to school may seem simple to many, but it can affect the direction of your entire life. Annie's journey in her youth, much like Tara's in the book Educated, proves to us once again that education is not just a way to escape poverty, but also the most powerful tool to help a person rely on their own strength to give themselves wings for the future. Many people say that studying isn't the only escape, nor is it the best path to wealth and success. But in reality, for many ordinary people, especially for children living in difficult conditions, going to school and reading many books is the fastest shortcut to changing one's destiny. This is not an empty theoretical statement, but a statement of immense weight, and perhaps we must go to the end of our lives to feel that weight. I myself am a person who now, every day, from the bottom of my heart, is extremely grateful to my mother. No matter how difficult the financial situation was, no matter how hard she had to shoulder raising a child alone for over 20 years, my mother still tried her best to let me go to school. And that opportunity helped me get to school and become friends with books. And it was these books that completely changed my destiny. They helped me broaden my horizons, allowing me to look up at the stars, even when I was stuck in the mud. They dispelled my biases, helped me overcome mediocrity, to love both extremes of pain and happiness, to accept imperfections, and to embrace everything, so I could know how powerful love and dedication are. As one writer said, books are the most patient and pleasant companions. They will never abandon you. There are many difficult thresholds in life that I was able to cross easily thanks to books. Books nurture and enrich anyone's inner world, helping us accumulate and change little by little to become a better version of ourselves than we were yesterday. Where our footsteps cannot measure, the words in books can. If you don't read and constantly enrich your inner self, then even if you travel thousands of miles to every corner of the earth, you are just like a postman. Every book is like a door. Where you want to go is up to you. I have a cousin back in my hometown who once texted me asking, "What should I choose now?" My dad says a girl shouldn't study too much. Finishing high school is enough. Go work part-time to help the family, then get married. I asked her, "Well, what do you think?" She said, "I don't know. My dad will only support me to study for the exam this year I really want to. But in the last 3 years, I've lost my foundation in many subjects. I'm afraid if I take the test, I'll fail. Then my family and everyone will criticize and blame me." I told her, "Don't be afraid. If you don't pass this year, you can take it again next year. I will support you with the money for studying." Because I looked back at my own last days of high school, a serious illness suddenly struck, making me unable to take the university entrance exam. At that time, a year later, when I recovered, the official exam time was less than a month away. No one believed I could pass. Even my relatives said, "You better prepare to go be a factory worker." Only my mother supported me from beginning to end. Finally, with all the effort I could muster, I succeeded in reviewing all the final year high school knowledge, doing practice tests within a month, and was admitted to my desired field of study. So, in my cousin's case, I believe that as long as she is determined enough and has someone's support, she will definitely succeed. Even if she couldn't get into her desired field, the process of training her perseverance would be a great help for her future life. But in the end, she still gave up. It's true, The saying, "Our destiny is in our own hands," is not wrong at all. More accurately, a lifetime's destiny has many turning points. A right decision will take you to a life experience with a higher energy level. But there are paths where one wrong step means the next 1,000 steps will also be wrong. In these life decisions, going to school and reading books is the best way to help you swim against the current. Out there are countless people who crave to go to school, who crave to be immersed in the pages of books, but are unable to. So, if you have the opportunity to study, to read, don't complain about the difficulties it brings. Even if you've encountered circumstances that didn't allow you to go to school when you were young, don't be sad, because you can still improve yourself every day by reading books and raising your level. If you have the opportunity in the future, you can also take university courses for adults. This is not strange at all, because when I studied abroad, I had many classmates who were older, even in their 50s or 60s. Not only was it completely normal, but everyone deeply admired such special classmates. Along with that, be patient and passionate about reading. Believe that as long as you maintain this habit, which brings many unexpected benefits, the books will one day touch your heart and mind, changing your life completely. They will help you live calmly, strongly, face all challenges, provide you with deep insights, open your mind, help you develop skills, and easily find true joy in life. Passing 20, the decision to stop at the right time to go further? Annie had tasted the forbidden fruit in high school. So by 25, she was particularly cautious about love and marriage. However, young people at that time generally had to actively get married, marry early, and have children. Because if a person stayed single for too long, they would be gossiped about, even ostracized. To fit in and have something to talk about with her peers, Annie also followed the crowd, putting her career on hold and getting married as soon as possible. In just a few years, she married a man who was not right for her and successively had 2 sons. Her husband came from an intellectual family, working in a state agency. After they married, his family provided her with comfortable material conditions. They moved into a large, well-equipped house. But married life left Annie exhausted. Every day, she both went to work, did housework, and looked after the children. After giving birth to her second child, she gave up her spiritual life, stopped reading and writing, and just focused on solving practical problems. Her husband occasionally helped with some housework, but was mostly absent. Influenced by the writer de Beauvoir and the feminist movement in France, she was once a person who pursued equal love and wanted a spiritual connection and mutual support between husband and wife. But in reality, apart from talking about parents and children, she and her husband had almost no common ground to talk about anymore. Their life was very boring. Everything was on her shoulders. If Annie was absent for just one day, the whole family simply couldn't function normally. Life went on like that for over 15 years. In those busy moments, Annie sometimes felt her existence was very unreal. She couldn't imagine that the 20-year-old Annie, who was once full of enthusiasm and vowed to publish a novel by age 25 or die, was now like this. Her pen was tossed in a corner. She didn't even take care of her appearance. Her hair was combed back. Her dress was frumpy. There was still a smile on her lips, but she always looked tired. At 40, she felt she had drifted very, very far from her true self. During a family trip to Spain, while sitting on the terrace of a cafe, Annie observed women aged 35 to 50. Then she suddenly wondered, these people were once radiant young girls, but why have they become like this now? Annie suddenly felt a terrifying crisis descend, and she seemed to realize the truth. She only had one life. If she continued to live like this, then by the time she was old, she would still be just a soulless person, a tired, bored machine, indifferent to everything. Therefore, she finally made the decisive decision to end this mistaken marriage and live alone with her 2 sons. You will see that sometimes stopping the damage in time, stopping at the right time, is the highest form of discipline. There is a Western proverb, "Don't cry over spilled milk." But why do so many people still find it irresistible, crying their whole lives over milk that has already been spilled? In economics, there is a term called sunk cost, used to refer to costs that have already been paid and cannot be recovered. Life is the same. Many people are often reluctant to stop because they have already invested so many sunk costs. You buy a movie ticket, sit for half an hour, and realize it's a bad movie, but you still have to watch it to the end because you've already spent the money. You go to a tourist spot, and even though you're disappointed and tired from the dense crowds and things not being like the advertisements, you still have to try to see everything because you've already come all this way. You've been with someone for many years, even knowing that person has all sorts of bad habits, gambling, alcoholism, lying, betrayal, and doesn't cherish you. But because you have invested too much cost, time, and emotion, you just continue. You do a job that wears you out, both physically and mentally, every day. But because you've become a long-time employee, you don't want to change careers. When sunk costs arise, people instinctively grit their teeth and continue. This thinking is deeply ingrained in many of us. We are always afraid of loss, but we could gain more by bravely stopping at the right time. Jacques Lacan once said that 90% of life's pain comes from not knowing how to stop mistakes in time. Everyone makes mistakes, takes the wrong path, sees the wrong person, does the wrong thing. But making a mistake is not scary. What's scary is knowing it's wrong, but not having the courage to accept the loss and give yourself a chance to start over. As the writer Lin Yutang once said, "It is wiser to give up wisely than to persist blindly." Sometimes stopping is how you go further. This is a type of progress. It can even be called a spectacular victory. If your mind and body are too tired right now, the only way is to allow yourself to stop. Stop to look within, to have the courage to turn a new page for yourself. Let go of the bad things in the past. Stay away from toxic people. End persistence that isn't worth it. The highest wisdom of humankind is to always leave room for oneself to retreat and to stop in time. Passing middle age, don't hesitate to expand the boundaries of your life. The future is the sum of our efforts to change. In her final years, Annie threw off all shackles. She no longer limited herself to the identity of a wife or a mother. She lived as herself. She moved, sold her old furniture, said goodbye to the past, and began to enjoy life to the fullest. Her attitude toward raising children also changed. She no longer took care of housework in minute detail, no longer concerned herself with her children's every move. Instead, she encouraged them to be independent. She also gave up worrying about age and status, no longer paying attention to the looks and comments of others. When her children started their own families and moved out, she became even more comfortable in the quiet of her life alone. Like a free-spirited young woman, she spent her days busy reading, constantly enriching her inner world. Even though she was very old, her face etched with the marks of time, she was still full of energy. She never stopped reading, never stopped writing, making breakthroughs in her work. Finally, at the age of 82, she was honored with the most prestigious award in the field of literature, the Nobel Prize. Her story is not only a powerful encouragement, but also an endless inspiration for so many people. It was by escaping the shackles of the world that she gained strong determination and experienced a wonderful old age. Life seems very long, but the time you can live for yourself is extremely short. The truth is, many people are living their entire lives for others. When they are young, they study for their parents. As young adults, they pursue success to gain the recognition of those around them. When they marry, they live for their partner and children. In old age, their spirits are all invested in their grandchildren. At the end of their lives, looking back, they seem to have done many things, but in reality, they were just repeating a pattern in a narrow space. Only when a person no longer defines themselves by, "Who am I? Who have I been? Who must I become?" and is not limited by roles and titles, can they develop their maximum potential and expand the boundaries of their life. In her final years, Annie found the true purpose of her life, allowing herself to do what she loved with your value as a person who always knows how to enrich their inner self, who is calmly themselves, will meet countless beautiful and surprising things on this life's journey. Compared to other Nobel laureates, the stories Annie writes seem ordinary. She realistically records the changes of the times and of herself.